The internet's not written in pencil mark, it's written in ink, as if every thought that tumbles through your head was so clever it would be a crime for it not to be shared.
Storytelling is one of the most human endeavors. A way to flat out entertain, connect with one another, or inspire, or tell stories about those that entertained or inspired us. But in recounting those stories and inspirations, how beholden to the truth should those creators remain? And when does a lie turn into entertainment? Or when does it cross the line into malice?
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
With movies and TV series often claiming broadly different interpretations, it can be difficult to discern what is really true. Ranging from based on a true story or inspired by true events, the terminology is getting more and more loose in order to serve the author's intended purpose, telling a story. When a filmmaker decides to abbreviate a life or career into a 2-hour movie, some concessions have to be made. Take classic underdog sports movie Rudy, for example. The film is still sort of a gold standard for the underdog works hard against all odds to win over the dismissive world kind of film. And while some of it is true, the film omits the fact that the real Rudy enlisted in the Navy after high school and had several veteran benefits while at Notre Dame, never being forced to sleep on grounds or pay his way with odd jobs. Famed 49er quarterback Joe Montana was also on the team at the same time and has said of the film,
"It's a movie, remember. Not all that's true. The crowd wasn't chanting, nobody threw in their jerseys. He worked his butt off to get where he was.
But not any harder than anybody else." Like a lot of these types of movies, the story was meant to inspire, and sometimes lying or embellishing is part of the story. Stories are more fragile than people usually think. Sometimes, in order to tell that story, facts and characters have to be rearranged. In Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor, history is dramatically rewritten. The timeline of events is all over the place. One of the more egregious moments is when Bay shows the Japanese planes attacking a civilian hospital, which just flatly didn't happen, with the pilots even having orders to avoid civilians altogether.
Planes incoming! Get them away from the windows!
The director himself said that he intended for the moment to make the Japanese seem more barbaric, which is an odd thing to do 60 years after the genuine moment of tragedy. While the movie was littered with more inaccuracies, most shrugged it off as nobody watches a Michael Bay movie to learn history. But it does beg the question, are some people more qualified or even allowed to tell a true story? Recently, Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon was released. Based on the book by David Gran, Scorsese and DiCaprio have talked endlessly about the cultural consultants, cooperation with the Osage, and how they have worked tirelessly to avoid the white savior stereotype popularized by movies like The Last Samurai. It is genuinely not our place to say whether or not they succeeded, but it clearly didn't work for everyone.
This film was not made for an Osage audience, it was made for everybody not Osage. This is an opportunity for them to ask themselves this question of morality.
It is highly recommended you read the entire Twitter thread, but Reservation Dogs star Devery Jacobs ended a very thoughtful reaction with, "This is the issue when non-native directors are given the liberty to tell our stories. They center the white perspective and focus on native people's pain." One of the most famous, not true stories is the Coen brothers' Fargo. With a flat-out based on a true story at the beginning of the movie, the film is based on no one particular case. The movie, instead, seems like someone pursuing a true crime headline database and filling in the blanks.
You lied to me, Mr. Lundgaard. You're a bald-faced liar.
Some people have connected aspects of the film's plot to various cases, but that makes the fiction of it all seem much more ingenuous. Yes, that is probably a horrible condemnation of us as a society when there are just so many crimes that it would be impossible to not find some reoccurring beats. That's because humanity often goes through the same beats a lot. When retelling a musician's rise to fame, they often follow a particular formula. Meet the unappreciated artist, see them start from nothing except raw talent, watch their meteoric rise, witness their inevitable downfall due to vice or insecurity, and rejoice as they land on their feet. The formula is often abridged and abbreviated in order to fit a timeline or clean up loose ends. But being somewhat truthful isn't always entertaining. Not when artists like Weird Al are making biopics in the most Weird Al way possible.
What's something you always wanted to do, but you were never allowed to?
Make up new words to a song that already exists.
Weird, the Al Yankovic story, is the highly fictional story of his rise to fame. Only after following the formula for a while, it goes off the rails in the best ways possible in order to not only lampoon the genre, but also act as a movie version of a song parody. Whether these movies are comedies or not isn't really important when making a quote-unquote true story. Most recently, Ridley Scott released Napoleon, a historical biography about the famous French guy from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
You ditched Napoleon? Deacon, do you realize you have stranded one of Europe's greatest leaders in San Dimas?
He was a
In the movie, there's a scene where Napoleon's army fires cannons at several Egyptian pyramids, which, again, just flat out didn't happen. Unlike Bay's malicious manipulation in Pearl Harbor, Scott has said, "I don't know if he did that, but it was a fast way of saying he took Egypt." Here, the director is using the reframing of true events as shorthand. It was the same with David Fincher's The Social Network. While the movie frames Facebook's creation as a result of being dumped, that moment never really happened. But it is an excellent way to introduce Fincher's version of Mark Zuckerberg, a spiteful and sinister man dead set on being more than what he's been told he is.
You're gonna go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. It'll be because you're an
If you ask if it works to propel the story, the answer is absolutely. Is it truthful? Not entirely. But maybe that's not the problem. While it was joked earlier that nobody should be taking history lessons from the guy who made The Rock, the same could be said about any person who made any blockbuster movie. These people are storytellers. They spin a wonderful yarn, and we should appreciate that, but maybe we shouldn't believe every detail they utter. The problem arises when we as an audience blindly accept everything we're shown that's backed by millions of dollars, familiar faces, and special effects. And these things do get people talking. A safe bet that often results in Oscar nominations, record sales, and box office returns. There's a reason the genre of true story has existed for so long.
And the Oscar goes to Green Book.
There's an idea that there are three sides to every story. Yours, mine, and the truth. While it's a nice colloquial saying, it's important to focus on the wording. Three sides to every story. There's a truth in there somewhere, but it's often hidden behind jokes, necessity, brevity, and bias. Honestly, that's alright. There are history books and learned historians we are exposed to thanks to the stories we're told. Myths like Robin Hood and King Arthur expose generation after generation to real historical moments like the Crusades or the complicated relationship between Britain and Roman empires. That's how we should interact with these types of stories, as a mean to educate yourself. As an audience, we have a responsibility to not just accept everything we are told. Stories are meant to entertain, connect us with each other, and inspire. Sometimes that inspiration is one of education and learning, and frankly, that's beautiful, even if the first thing you should learn is to take based on a true story or inspired by true events with a giant barrel of salt. And so, what do you think? What are some of your favorite alters a story has made to history? Let us know down in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching Nerdstalgic.